Hello, welcome to a special series of Art Pays Me interviews with the winners of the 2024 Creative Nova Scotia Awards. Presented annually by Arts Nova Scotia and the Creative Nova Scotia Leadership Council, these awards celebrate artistic excellence across Mi'kmaq. Award categories are as follows: Creative Community Impact, Prix Grand Prix, Established Artist, Emerging Artist, Black Artist, Indigenous Artist, and finally the Portia White Prize that is given to a person who has made outstanding and significant contributions to Nova Scotia's creative community over a sustained career, much like the incredible woman that the award is named after. The winner will also choose an emerging artist or cultural organization that they feel deserve recognition. Collectively, the awards are worth $75,000. Visit artsns.ca to nominate your favorite Nova Scotia artist or nominate yourself. This series would not be possible without the fantastic production work of Heist and Kiki Beats. On this episode, I sat down with Emerging Artist Recognition Award winner Kaashif Ghanie. We talked about the creative practice that he shares with his partner Kate Gray out of Wonderneath in Halifax, and the importance of representation in the ceramics and pottery space, and just the importance of like community, I guess, as artists, and why more of us need to keep creating spaces like Wonderneath in order to uplift everyone. And it's not necessarily about competition so much as, you know, the more representation, the more we collaborate, the more we work together, the bigger demand and the bigger interest, the bigger level of support we all have for each other. So it was a great conversation. I hope you enjoy. Peace. Thank you for inviting me to your studio to chat. Man, before we start though, can you state your name, your pronouns, and your creative discipline?
Sure. My name is Kaashif Ghanie. Friends and family call me Kaz.
Okay.
My medium is ceramics. I make functional pottery, and sometimes I'll make bigger pots, which have a bigger statement and stuff like that. And I will sometimes incorporate multimedia aspects as well.
Okay. When you say bigger pots, how big are we talking?
I haven't done it since, but in university I was able to do like 6-foot tall pots.
Ooh.
Now they're probably closer around like 50 inches, give or take, depending on how you stack them.
How do you make a 6-foot pot?
So in terms of 6-foot pot, you need a really good wheel first off.
Okay.
That can support 300 pounds of clay, and you kind of build them in sections. So you kind of throw your initial part, so it would be like 20 pounds or so, and then you take long coils and you press the coils down into the clay and you throw them up. So then you eventually build the form as you get taller and taller and taller.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a very like physically rigorous process too.
Yes, especially when you need if you only have one wheel to do it on, you have to switch the pot to move another pot on. It can be a little heavy at times, yeah.
Wow. So like ceramics, this is such a specific thing. It's not something you typically hear about when you're a kid, at least from my perspective anyway. How did you figure out that this is what you wanted to do, or was there someone that kind of guided you that way?
For me, initially in university, I was studying other things, but I took intro ceramics with Neil Forrest, and he was away for 2 weeks for a conference, and we had another instructor come in, Rachel DeConde, and we got to try pottery and throwing for the first time, and it just clicked, it made sense, and I was able to throw something. It was like, it came naturally, and it opened up the world of possibilities for me.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about your illustration background, so like you can actually illustrate on these surfaces.
Absolutely. So in terms of my pots, I've done a couple different iterations of illustration. So one is kind of like similar to almost like relief printmaking or like carving.
Yeah.
It's called sgraffito. It's where you cover your piece in a color or a slip or something, and then you scratch it away to kind of create a very graphic image. For me, I've always really gravitated to that graphic element.
Yeah.
In terms of other things too, I sometimes would take those images and replicate them in screens so then I can do a bigger process of them. So there's a lot that you can do with it.
Right. I've always been curious, and maybe this is a really dumb question, but like, how do you get the color in there? Is it like literally you're just painting it on top of the surface?
So it really depends on on what you're going for.
Okay.
So for me, I like the crisp edge of like on the on the side of pottery. Like for me, the functional side,
Yeah.
I'll do like a black layer and then try to add like a watercolor element to it through glazing. And glazing is usually where you'll get some of your color. Otherwise, you could also do it in other ways too. But for me, I use it through glazing.
Got it. Got it. So, like, when you think about your work historically, do you see certain themes? Like, is there even is there like sort of driving force that kind of keeps you doing this thing that it's hard sometimes?
So for me, I would say one of the biggest factors for when I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do on vessels and stuff was prayer rugs. Prayer rugs in my family growing up as a Muslim were very prominent. They're very ornate. They're very beautiful. And for me, I wanted to put that into ceramics and pottery in some way. So I was able to kind of recontextualize old family rugs and kind of develop my own patterns based off those.
Interesting. So it's funny, like how did you, okay, so I'm saying this now, but I'm curious, did you run away from that maybe when you were younger and then now you're kind of coming back to it?
In terms of like religion?
Not necessarily religion, but like, is there like a callback to maybe say a youth or something? I'll speak for myself. I resisted some of the things that were to my origin story.
Yeah.
Now I'm going back to them. Is that?
So I would say there's a bit of nostalgia with it as well. And also, I recently finished a residency at the Clean Glass in Ontario, Waterloo Kitchen area, and the whole project was based off Grandma's recipes. So my family's from Guyana in South America, and usually Guyana is kind of like a melting pot. There's so many different cultures and so many different foods and stuff like that. So, you know, there's not one generic food. It's all mishmashed and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So for me, I wanted to kind of, you know, talk about those family recipes and stuff like that. So that's where, like, for me, nostalgia comes back through cooking and like those sorts of forms and historical context as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Does cooking sort of show up in your work in subliminal ways?
In I think right now, what I'm trying to go for with that series of pots, it's kind of tying in like the substance of sharing meals and stuff like that, and also having like political discourse around the dinner table as well. So I'm kind of trying to meld all those elements together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So is there a routine that maybe you have, or a typical aspect of your creative process that you have to do?
So in terms of my creative process, when I'm thinking of designing something, what I try to do is I'll come up with like sort of like an idea, and like if it's politically based or, you know, something that kind of stirs in me, I start off with that, and then I kind of like want to find a process that kind of fits it properly, and then from there I kind of am able to kind of put different elements of like history, and the context for where that history comes from, whether it's like personal or family based, right, and then add the elements of political, like unrest, or like for instance, one of my pieces I dealt with like the idea of genocide and stuff like that into it. So I try to like bring all those things together in a way.
Right. Do you find, this is something I find interesting anyway, people might come by and they might buy something, and it's just like, to them it's just pretty, but you've got all this coded messaging in there that maybe is deeper than that.
I think it depends on the piece. So I try to keep the functional side a little bit different, but they still tend, when somebody buys something from me, they're taking, you know, a part of our business with them, and they're taking a part of like both our heritages and stuff like that and bringing it into their life. So it really depends on what they're bringing, right? Or taking,
Right. It's like if they know, it's more of a clear message when it comes to that kind of stuff, but for the commercial side of it.
Absolutely. Like I sometimes will say with Kate, like when people purchase something from us, like whether it's a mug or something like that, you're bringing that into your daily ritual, right? So you're taking a part of me when you get that.
Yeah, interesting. So is there a particular work that you're proud of?
I have one work that I'm very proud of, and I wish I could show it some more. in 2020, I was given an Arts Equity grant from Arts Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And the work is called Grammar of War Remnants. It's kind of like the perfect meld of what my practice is kind of moving towards. So it takes the ideas and concepts of like clay and ceramics and takes the process and pushes it forward in the sense. So the clay was meant to, you throw something and it's meant to hold its shape. But what I did with this specific clay was I put it in the kiln and I kind of made it slump like a flat rug or something like that. So for me, when I describe a vessel or a pot, you have your belly, your neck, and your foot. They're very like figurative base, right? So I kind of use that as like a stand-in for how I use figuration in my work. And so with these slump vases, I essentially made a whole, like almost 120 of them or 111. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a bunch of them, and they were all decorated with different patterns, and they were meant to kind of resemble a prayer rug, but like a giant prayer rug. And it's meant to talk about like fallen brothers and sisters and genocide and so on and so forth.
Right.
But the other thing too, those vessels are like lifeless because they've lost their air in them, right?
Yep.
The thing that kind of sets it apart is I also added a sound element. And what it was when another Muslim meets another person and they say Assalamu alaikum, right, which means peace be upon you, right? I stretched it out in an audio program and kind of made it like a very distorted version, so you wouldn't be able to actually understand what it was.
Right.
So it's kind of like that long pause when somebody is kind of lost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like, were you ever were you fearful to do something like that?
I don't really have fear for it, but like, I've definitely dealt with my own version of racism and Islamophobia before too.
Yeah.
But like, I think these, like for me, that specific project was shown at Nocturne in 2022, I want to say. And it actually touched another Muslim sister. Actually, she was there as a volunteer, and we actually met like at Wonderneath that same night when she was showcasing it, and it was a beautiful interaction. Yeah.
Lovely. So what does a typical day or even a week at Wonderneath look like for you?
So it depends. So, but my partner and I, Kate Gray, we share a studio in the Wonderneath Studios in Chibuktuk, Halifax. For us, it would be getting in, and it really depends on whether or not we're like doing production or if we're doing other things, right? So if it's other things like, I would be working on like say a larger project, and it depends. And I feel as though Wonderneath has always been super supportive of us. Yeah.
I've been brainstorming for myself, creative space that's Black owned, that shows different types of work and also has spaces to work and be creative, etc., and build whatever. And then I was sitting there looking around. I'm like, wait a minute, this place does everything that I already wanted to do. Why do I need to build another one? But then you guys were like, well, yeah, but we need more. We need more.
100%.
And that's a really interesting thing from just a business perspective and art thing too, where a lot of times we're like, there's lots of painters already, there's lots of this or there's lots of that, but the more the better. We all build each other up.
I 100% agree. I can even attest for this, like in the ceramic field.
Yeah.
So I feel though in Nova Scotia we're very lacking in ceramic spaces, right? And one of the things coming from Ontario just recently, every city you go to, they have some form of guild or facility for people to use, and that's something that, like, I know like funding and space is really difficult out here, but it's something that would be very great to have.
Excellent. Is there a particular piece about living and creating and working in Nova Scotia that makes it special for you?
I think for me, living and working in Nova Scotia, I think the biggest thing is like all the support I've been given.
Yeah.
From whether it's like through arts organizations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that, the craft community, specifically like the Center for Craft. I started off doing my residencies there, and that community has kind of like helped foster who I am and what I'm able to do now. Yeah.
Right. So what does this award mean for you then?
So this award, I feel as though it's like the culmination of the last 6 years of my work. worked my butt off to try and like build all these pieces and so on and so forth. So for me, it's the accumulation of all those elements being put together, but also the next stepping stone part of my career.
What is that?
So I was very gracious. I have a show coming up in 2026 at the Mary Black,
Yeah.
and I just finished a residency at the Klein class in Ontario. And those pieces, I kind of want to bring both of them together. So taking elements from Grammar of War, but also taking elements from like my grandma's recipes, those pieces, and bringing in to like the context of a gallery space and talking about food, sharing recipes, but also having discussions at the dinner table.
Sweet. That's amazing. That's wow.
It's a daunting project, but I'm really excited to like get started on that.
Man. So is there anything else that we might have missed that you'd like to talk about?
I think for me, and I was talking about this with my partner,
Yeah.
for me, I want to advocate for the arts.
Okay.
As a person of color, I don't see a lot of persons of color, especially in pottery making. And I think it's important for people like us to be, shown and also understand this is a viable career.
Yes, indeed. And nothing to say. I agree, 100%. Encourage your kids, encourage your family members, your friends.
Exactly.
And if where there's struggle, show them the way. Show them how to like navigate through and work together and figure out this weird thing that we all love.
Can I give you a little story?
Go for it.
Okay, so when I was doing my residency at the
Yeah.
Klein class, I had this beautiful moment. So I had to teach a class, and I was teaching kids.
Yeah.
And this one child, he had to go to a trumpet practice, so he didn't get to finish the workshop. He started early, but didn't get to come back, and it kind of ended before he could finish it. But his mom was there with him, and they wanted to see if they could take it home to finish it, which was totally fine.
Yeah.
Long story short, they realized I was Guyanese, right? And I had a Guyanese background. He's also Guyanese too, right? So it was a beautiful moment of you're Guyanese, you're doing these things, we recognize these recipes and so on and so forth. So it was very beautiful and touching, and it kind of like reinforces my practice as an artist, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Possibility model is what they call it, right? It breaks a certain part of your brain once
really
you
did.
understand.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with us, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Art Pays Me. Hit me up on socials at Art Pays Me pretty much everywhere and let me know what you think. I love connecting with listeners. If you're an artist looking for clothes that speak to the creative lifestyle, check out artpaysme.com. And don't forget, visit artsns.ca for more information about the Creative Nova Scotia Awards.